Well, when your mom got so sick, my anxiety levels had been climbing up again.
Well, yeah, that was unbearable. I mean, the response I had, if you're told your parent or your wife of almost 30 years has no chance and is going to be dead in the next 10 months. That's what we were told. That surgery doesn't help and that chemo doesn't help and that this is a fast growing cancer and you're screwed no matter what. Right. That's what we heard in one day. So yeah, anxiety. Well, and
then we went all over North America to New York and to Houston and to LA looking for different opinions before we decided to settle on surgery.
And everyone gave us the same opinion.
Yes, which was that nothing is going to help, but surgery was probably the best low probability bet.
Yeah. So
I asked my doctor to increase the benzodiazepine dose, but what seemed to happen as a consequence of that was that I just got more anxious. So again, in retrospect, it seems like I had a rather uncommon but not unheard of reaction to benzodiazepines where increased dose makes anxiety worse instead of better. So then at one point when things weren't getting better and Tammy was still in the hospital, I was trying to take care of her. We had lots of help. I stopped taking them entirely and tried ketamine, which is a treatment for depression. Well, neither of those were a very good idea as it turned out. So I had to stop taking benzodiazepines entirely to take the ketamine.
Oh, yeah.
Then I stayed off them for something approximating
a week.
Not knowing that was a very bad idea. And I often think I should have known these things because I did a lot of scientific research when I was a graduate student on alcoholism. And I knew that alcohol and benzodiazepines and barbiturates were all the same chemical class, at least in terms of their effect on neurological effects. But what I knew about benzodiazepines was that they were comparatively safe compared to barbiturates, which they basically replaced. But that's much less true than everybody who's taking them hopes. And they're very widely prescribed. And I don't remember what the probability of developing a dependency on them is if you take them for more than 2 weeks. It's 50%, I believe.
It's something like 50%.
Yeah, if you take them for 2 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, and over 4 weeks, it's much, much higher.
Right.
And most people prescribe them, stay on them for life. And that could have something to do with the fact that they're very difficult to get off of.
Yeah, well, it was unbelievably unpleasant. I mean, it was unbearably unpleasant. And so I started tapering off when Tammy was in the hospital, but I couldn't push that too fast because it wasn't bearable.
And what do you mean it wasn't
bearable?
Well,
my anxiety levels went higher than anything I'd ever experienced. And I also developed this condition called akathisia. And the best way I can describe that is that it was like being jabbed with something, with a prod, like a cattle prod, something electric or something sharp, nonstop for hours, for all the hours I was awake. It was I couldn't sit or lay down or stop moving. And even if I did get up and move, it wasn't like that made it better. I just couldn't stop doing it. It was horrible. Akathisia is horrible. It's like being whipped. That's another way of thinking about it. Although I really think I would have, sounds melodramatic, but I think if I had to pick whipping or akathisia, I suppose it would depend on how big a whip. But
maybe not one of those.
It wouldn't be an obvious choice.
Those 5-pronged whips.
Yes, yeah. Cat of nine tails, that might be worse. But it was plenty bad.
Yeah.
And things just fell apart more and more. Tammy recovered rather miraculously in the middle of August, but I continued my sort of downhill spiral and ended up in a clinic on the Eastern Seaboard that claimed they could do a rapid benzodiazepine detox, which was a complete bloody lie.
Yeah, well, what we figured was we didn't realize that there was this physical dependency until you stopped to try and do the ketamine. And then we tried tapering and you couldn't stand it because of the akathisia. And so we thought, well, let's go get some professional help.
Right. And I went to the clinic on the understanding that they could do a multi-day detoxification and treatment for withdrawal. And when I got there, what they told me instead was that they'd substitute one benzodiazepine for another, which wasn't the least bit helpful because clonazepam was already a long-acting benzodiazepine, and they're easier to wean off than the shorter-acting benzodiazepines. And they had nothing to offer, essentially. I came out of that clinic worse than when I went in. So,
like significantly worse.
Yes.
On 2 more sedative-like drugs in order to dampen down the akathesic symptoms.
Right, which wasn't helping much.
Given the fact that the benzodiazepines were causing the akathisia.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then I went back to Toronto.
That's November.
And things maintained their downhill trajectory, apart from the fact that Tammy was recovering quite nicely, which of course was great. But then I ended up in the hospital in Toronto, and the hospital I ended up in was also worse than useless.
Yes.
So, and I don't remember this part of it from December 15th onward. You and Andre, your husband, took me out of that hospital, and we went to Russia, of all places, near Moscow, to try a treatment offered by a clinic there that used...
they used propofol and Dextor.
Right. Propofol as a heavy sedating agent, which basically made me unconscious for 9 days.
Yeah, so you were completely out for 9 days.
Well, I also had pneumonia, which I developed apparently in the hospital in Toronto. Well, yeah, it was quite entertaining, the whole string of events.
We got questions about, why on earth would you go to Russia when you could get, world-class care in North America? And the reason for that was because we had tried the Ashton protocol. Switching over to Valium, we tried the Ashton protocol, and lots of people have success with that, although it sounds horrible.
And lots of people don't have success with it.
Yeah, I put out the first family update we did was when you went to the first rehab center in the States. And after I put that out and said, this is what's going on, I had hundreds, if not thousands of people respond telling me how horrible benzodiazepine withdrawal could be, how they couldn't work, how they were pacing around their backyards for a year. And they basically said, just keep him alive. Make sure he stays alive.
The psychiatrists that I spoke with said, when I asked them how long the akathisia was likely to last, they said, well, it could be 2 years. And I thought, no one could live like this for 2 years. It's like, you can't live for 2 years if you're being constantly prodded with something excruciatingly painful on a moment-to-moment basis. It's just not, and there's no escape. There's no relief. That's just not possible. It wasn't possible. The reason I did survive certainly wasn't because I was enjoying my life. The reason is that I had family that I was very attached to and friends who went above and beyond the call of duty, helping to care for me. But the experience was intolerably dreadful. And it's so strange because we're now in Serbia, weirdly enough, in Belgrade of all bloody places. And we've been here about 2 weeks and went to yet another specialty clinic run by an anesthesiologist. And they modified the medication that I was taking in Florida, which is where we were last. And I don't know, I can't understand it, but virtually all my symptoms have disappeared. I'm still weak if I get up and walk around. I don't have my stamina, but I can think clearly. I feel I'm back to my regular self, such as that is.
Yeah.
During the mornings and during the days, I can work. It's very surprising to me that this happened so rapidly, but it has, and that's why we're doing this podcast or this video. but and hopefully it'll last.